In episode 8, we get backstory on what happened with Colin Worley. The whole Mateo-Colin thing, it's not an accident. Mateo and Colin were actually identical twins. Colin was the one who dropped the bomb off at the location on the train. He was the one who was working for Turn Lake Industries. He was also the one who was a drug addict. When he came home after dropping off the package on the train, he was on edge because it didn't go off and he had just been attacked by Peter, narrowly getting away. He opens his door and there's his twin brother Mateo because he had just gotten kicked out of his house via his girlfriend. Colin tried to explain to Mateo, dude, you got to get out of here, but Mateo wasn't getting the message. Colin called up Gordon Wick, explained what happened with the package, and Gordon said, don't worry, we're going to fix it. And his idea of fixing it the next day was to kill Mateo. It was a complete accident, though. Gordon's goons thought that they were killing Colin. It's a misunderstanding because they're identical twins. They set it up to look like it was a drug overdose. So when Colin came home and saw the scene, he realized pretty quickly that this was a setup by Gordon and Turn Lake Industries. He immediately went into damage control. He swapped IDs with Mateo and then decided to assume Mateo's identity. So while the world thinks that it's Mateo who's running amok, in reality, it's Colin, who was pronounced dead months ago. Of course, Peter and Rose, they don't know any of this. All they know is that Colin Worley is their bomber. They were on the way to that P.O. box when they were caught by Chelsea and Monks, and right away they explain to them that they're innocent. They don't have Maddie, and they've been able to crack this thing wide open, and they have proof. Now, at first, Chelsea and Monks don't believe a word these two say, but when they look at their, quote, evidence, and they see Colin's picture, they recognize it. They suddenly get a little bit curious. It's not like they believe Peter and Rose 100%, but they're willing at least to follow them down the rabbit hole. Monks and Chelsea take Rose and Peter into the houseboat, and they have them explain exactly what they've found about the city blocks, about the target, everything. Rose, however, notices that Monks and Chelsea keep looking back and forth with each other like some of this sounds familiar, and it causes Chelsea to come clean by showing them a picture of Mateo's sketch. Peter's a little confused because Colin died, and that's when Chelsea tells him that he goes by Mateo now. The whole situation's confusing because Colin's body had no visible tattoos. Mateo has this snake tattoo. And that's when, looking into the file a little bit more, they realize that Colin and Mateo are twin brothers. Even though Chelsea and Monks were instructed to bring these two in, they decide to go with their gut, heading to that P.O. box and investigating it a little bit more. While they head over there, Gordon Wick gets once again another message from Colin. This time, it's a video of Maddie explaining that if the vice president doesn't come clean in the next 2 hours, she's going to die. Unlike the first time, though, Gordon and Diane decide not to show the vice president this. Instead, they just tell him there is no update, but the fact there's no update leads the vice president to want to come clean. Diane hammers home the point, though, that he's not doing it. They've discussed it. The juice isn't worth the squeeze. But the vice president doesn't want to risk losing his only remaining family member, his only remaining daughter. He tells Diane, I'm not going to be the father that was on that nanny cam. Not anymore. Gordon decides to step in and, trying to put the vice president's mind at ease, he tells him, I have somebody looking into this. They have a lead. They're motivated to end it quickly. They should be able to get Maddie back pretty soon. If we can stall the kidnapper. But the vice president jumps in and says, wait, how do you know it's just one kidnapper? And once again, they sent the video just to you. You know this person, don't you? Gordon then reveals that he does know who it is. It's the guy who tried to do the metro bombing for them. They thought they killed him, but instead they obviously neutralized his brother. Tensions get high, then they calm down. It ends with the vice president leaving the room just saying, get her home safely soon, please. When he does leave, though, both Gordon and Diane know they have a problem, and it is the vice president. So Diane asks Gordon, your associate, are they just looking into Colin? And Gordon knows what she means. She means that maybe he add on a little bit more to this to-do list. Maybe he add on the vice president. Later that day, both Diane and the vice president meet up in the White House. There's a meeting on Omar Zadar with the president, and both Diane and the vice president are supposed to be in it. But when the vice president stops by Diane's office to walk and talk over to the meeting, Diane tells him that's not supposed to start for a few hours. And the vice president tells her it got rescheduled, but Diane got nothing about it, which is super weird. When they arrive at the room where the meeting is to take place, one of the president's staffers steps in and won't let Diane in the room, telling her that the president has requested she focus on an upcoming meeting with a Representative Watkins. The Watkins meeting seems like complete crap. On top of it, this staffer won't even let Diane in to see the president, speak to her. Nothing. Diane just tells the staffer, "Tell the president I need 5 minutes when she's done." And she begrudgingly heads off to go meet with this representative from Texas. In the actual Zadar meeting, they're discussing whether or not the United States will support him in his upcoming election. He's got to make some concessions to do so, but if he makes these concessions, then the United States will put their backing behind him. And it's something the vice president just can't wrap his head around. He can't believe they're even entertaining this idea because as he screams at everybody, "This guy's a terrorist. What are we doing?" This little outburst leads the president to dismiss everybody in the room except the vice president, where she has a candid one-on-one with him and tells him, "Why don't you take a couple days? I mean, you're clearly on edge with everything going on with Maddie." But the vice president tells her sitting at home and just waiting would make the situation so much worse for him. Somehow in the conversation, the vice president is able to bring up Diane naturally, which leads him to ask, "Yeah, where is she today?" Knowing that she wasn't admitted access to the meeting. And the president reveals to the vice president that she's thinking about making a change in the West Wing. And the change would be her old buddy, Diane Farr. Now, while everybody at the White House is discussing Zadar, Chelsea, Monks, Pete, Rose, they all head over to this P.O. box to figure out if they can get a lead on where Mateo/Colin is. The P.O. box leads them to a storage unit. But at the storage unit, Monks finds a pay stub for Colin, and he wants to go question the employer. Because of that, Monks and Chelsea are going to have to split up. So Monks takes Rose, and Chelsea hangs back at the storage facility with Pete. It's becoming more and more clear to Chelsea that Pete actually didn't have anything to do with this. And Pete once again asks her, "Tell me, who were you protecting the day of the Metro bombing? If I know, maybe it'll give us a hint as to what we're dealing with." So finally, after a little more pressure, Chelsea reveals who she was protecting. It was Zadar. It was a secret meeting set up. He was in the country. No one was supposed to know about it, but he was there for a few hours. And if the target truly was Zadar, then it makes a lot of sense. Because if a couple people in the government wanted to kill Zadar, just himself, that would make waves. You might be looking at a war. But if it's set up as a terrorist attack and he just happens to be one of the casualties, then that doesn't really bring up any red flags. As they're figuring this out, Chelsea gets a video message from a number that she doesn't recognize, and it's a video of Maddie. The 2 hours that Maddie had given her father to come clean were up. In a last-ditch effort, Maddie told Mateo/Colin, "Let me text my dad. I'll make a video, I'll plead to him, and I can get him to do what you want." Instead of texting her dad this message, though, she gave Colin/Mateo Chelsea's number. And in the video, which seems on the surface to be nothing more than, "Hey, please come clean, they're about to kill me," there is a hidden message. Certain words, Maddie touches her necklace. Both Chelsea and Pete pick up on this, and when they write it all down, it translates to Train R142. That's the only thing that Maddie knows about her location. She kept digging in the wall until she got to a point where there was a box and written on it was R142. She could hear trains, so she just figured that that would be some information that Chelsea could use to find her location. At first, Chelsea wants to send this information to people in the White House, but Pete convinces her not to do that because they don't know who they can trust. They can figure this out on their own. They start hopping on Google, searching train, searching the number sequence, everything, but nothing's really popping up. They then, however, get a lead from Monks. They were able to track down the last 3 employers for Worley. And when you put all their locations in, you get a perfect triangle. And in the middle of that triangle is a shipping container yard. Now, both Chelsea and Pete think they have a pretty good idea of where Maddie's being kept. They tell Monks to meet them over there, and when they arrive, Chelsea has no problem putting on a bulletproof vest and giving one to Pete, along with a gun. They then start walking through the yard gingerly, trying to find Maddie. But Colin/Mateo, he had thought of this, so he put up security camera footage that was motion detected. He gets an alert on his phone telling him that there are visitors, and he frantically runs back to the shipping container that he's keeping Maddie in. But Maddie wasn't about to wait for someone to save her. She took matters into her own hands. She knocked over the light that was kept in the storage facility, broke off a piece of it, and attacked Colin with it. She then fled out of the storage facility, having no idea that Chelsea and Pete were looking for her, and she was just trying to get away from Colin. Maddie ends up running into Chelsea's arms. Pete ends up taking Colin down and arresting him. At this point, it's just Pete, Chelsea, and Monks. Rose was left in the car because Monks figured that she couldn't really help with anything. They start escorting Colin out of the shipping yard when all of a sudden Monks notices that there's a sniper perched above them. The sniper is that female assassin who was able to hunt Colin down. And in fact, the first person she kills is Colin, so Pete isn't going to be able to get his side of the story. The shooting, though, has Maddie injured. She got hit with some shrapnel, so she's having trouble walking. And then Monks gets hit by the sniper. Pete would have been next, but Rose, who had heard the commotion, wasn't about to sit back and let other people fight her battles. She climbed up and threw the female assassin down to the ground, killing her. Unfortunately, though, Monks loses his life. Thank you so much for checking out this recap. Please consider subscribing to the channel and subscribing to my Patreon. Hit thumbs up if you liked it. Smash that thumbs down button if you thought it sucked. If you left a comment, I don't get back to you. I usually don't check the comments unless they're like a super comment. Also, if you don't see the next video up on the end screen, not to worry, it'll be up in a day or two.